Hello, hi, and welcome one and all to a brand new show, sort of, here on the SB Nation NFL show. A reminder before we keep going that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. My name is RJ Ochoa, and we're calling this TGI football. It is Friday. If that isn't obvious, that is the iconic grunt of not Seth Rogen, but Brandon Lee Gowton from SB Nation's Bleeding Green Nation. The iconic Stephen Serda from SB Nation's Arrowhead Pride is here as well. Gentlemen, happy Friday. Stephen, I go to you first because you look radiant today.
Thank you. Very excited. Had preseason games. I am in the green so far in football season. I've won money back-to-back weeks on preseason football, so I am flying right now.
I am also in the green, both figuratively and literally, because I'm wearing a green shirt right now. But I'm also placing a bet here on DraftKings Sportsbook, where I'm putting $5 on the Ravens to beat the Eagles on Saturday night, because the Ravens have this crazy preseason winning streak that they seem to actually care about a lot. They're 23-0 in their last 23 preseason games. So I'm going to bet on the Ravens to continue to try to keep this thing going, and maybe I can win a couple bucks.
Do you see what BLG has done, Steven? He's set this Ravens thing up to be a big deal so that if the Eagles win, he can be like, oh man, what an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If the Eagles lose, it's like, oh, well, they care a lot about this. So it's really not a big deal that the Eagles lost. I will say, I don't think in the green is the proper expression. It's in the black. If you're making money,
whatever. I don't know anything.
It just shows you've never worked in retail. That's really
it shows Steven has made so much money that he doesn't even care what the proper terminology is.
Yeah. Well, actually, so this I didn't realize this was for no money, but on the subject of DraftKings, I texted Steven on Thursday night before the preseason game started. Did you join the DraftKings contest, Steven?
I did. I didn't look at that one because it was a free contest, but I don't know where I
didn't realize. I didn't realize it was free. So shout out to DraftKings for doing free contests. But I actually thought it was going to be a free contest that had a payout. You know what I mean? To the top 3 places or whatever. There were 67 people who participated in this contest. Can you look and see what you placed? Because I'm curious. I was 14th for what it's worth. 14th out of 67. Is that impressive to you, Brandon?
No.
I think that's pretty impressive. It's hard. Okay. You have to play a whole different game when you're.
It's impressive to me.
I was 16th out of 67, so
beat ya, sucker.
Not great, but I did win money in the ones that actually cost money to play in, so I'm fine. I'm good right
now. I did have Tank Dell going last night. Did anybody else? Did you? I guess that would just be you, Steven.
Yeah, I think I had Tank Dell in that lineup. That's probably why I found a way to 16th, because nobody else did good.
He was kind of the story of the night for the Houston Texans. Finished with 5 catches, 65 yards, and a Jermaine Kearse Super Bowl 49 style touchdown. That was very cool. Did anybody enjoy the Tank Dell touchdown? I guess not, Brandon. Did it impress you either?
I did. I was impressed by it. I like Tank Dell. I liked him in the draft. I thought he should have went a little bit higher than he did. I know he's only 5'8". He's small, but guy can clearly play a little bit. There's some juice there. You'd mentioned he had the 5 of 8 targets for 65 yards on 17 total routes run. So a pretty efficient night for a player making their first NFL start, albeit in the preseason. He looked pretty good. So excited for him.
I don't want to dump on Tank Dell here. That catch was great. He was amazing last night, but we're talking about a 165-pound NFL wide receiver here. So I'm not super confident that Tank Dell is all of a sudden going to be a superstar after one preseason game.
CJ Stroud threw a pick. Jalen Mills. Did you guys see he caught some heat for celebrating? This was a thing. Jalen Mills had a stop behind the line of scrimmage, and he was flexing like it was the Super Bowl.
That's just Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills would do his little finger wag celebration. I broke up that pass or didn't allow that pass when he would have totally gotten burned in coverage and the ball was just way overthrown or something. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter if Jalen Mills doesn't even does anything good. He's going to celebrate no matter what.
Some people are saying that Jalen Mills walked so that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson could run in Philadelphia.
Hey, Jalen Mills is just excited for football the same way that we are.
That's right.
I don't have a problem with it. Celebrate all you want in the preseason.
Right.
I don't think we need to like offer it. Well, I guess we have to like. So we haven't done. I don't even remember. Did we do this show in the playoffs last year? We did, right? Like we did to a different
Super
degree.
Bowl preview.
Right. Obviously, it's a similar version to the Friday show we did last year. This is what we'll be doing every Friday this year. Although we'll be discussing and previewing the upcoming NFL games. Like I don't know. I don't think we're gonna do that. Like, are you anxious to like preview all of the preseason games? Did you even watch all of the Seahawks Vikings game?
No, I did watch a good portion of it, but I was working on other stuff anyways last night. So I just kind of had it on in the background, and there's some young players, especially on the Vikings, that I was kind of interested to see, like running back Dwayne McBride, who's a 7th round pick, who I think's got some talent. He did not have a very good preseason debut, but they've got some players that I was interested in. Jordan Addison was a guy that I was kind of watching to see how he did, and especially preseason week 1, unless you're like sickos like we are, like you got to do a lot of work to know most of the players on the field.
I did see Kirk Cousins wearing a helmet despite not wearing any pads. What's the point of that?
Maybe his speaker to hear the play. Maybe it's just more a more comfortable
headset.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, maybe somebody else needed the headset. He's like, oh, I can just run my helmet.
Is more comfortable than the headset, is what you're telling me?
That's possible. I mean, it's more comfortable from like a psychological standpoint. Like he's just more used to it. I mean, look, we don't need to look for the most shallow reasons to hate Kirk Cousins. He catches.
I hate him. I just thought it was I'm curious about the decision. It's an interesting decision.
Yeah, the game had some Pac-12 After Dark vibes, which is cool because those are dead and don't exist anymore, or won't exist anymore, I guess, in the future. So it was kind of nice and settling to have a game on that late. We have how many games on tonight? There's 3,
tonight, as
4?
on Friday.
This should have been the part where one of you had that answer ready. So I mean, just
I didn't have it ready. I didn't know
we're clearly off to a slow start.
I can figure it out pretty quick if you need me to.
Well,
there's way more than 3 games. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 games. 6 games tonight.
Who are they, Stephen? And what are the lines? More importantly,
Packers at Bengals. Packers -4. Giants at Lions, Giants -3. Falcons at Dolphins, Falcons -2.5. Steelers at Buccaneers, Steelers -3. Commanders at Browns, Browns -3. Broncos at Cardinals, Broncos -5.5.
Okay, so Brandon, what are you most interested to see, glean, or learn from Friday's games?
I think Bijan Robinson's probably a big one, right? I mean, I don't know how much exactly he's going to play, considering he's going to be a big part of the Falcons' offense this year. But I feel like they're going to want to get him some work, show him off a little bit. And, I mean, he's probably the biggest rookie that we're watching. That's always exciting, too. I mean, typically, I don't know how other teams handle all of their situations in terms of resting starters in the preseason or not. It's obviously become increasingly more common over the years. But I guess it has to be Bijan, really.
I think that's wrong. I think the answer is Kyle Trask. Is that not fair?
You're really excited to see Kyle Trask.
I'm interested. That was the word I actually offered.
But didn't you see the report that Baker Mayfield's going to be the starter for the Bucs week 1?
I'm interested because if that's your floor, like if that's your safety net, like I want to understand like how low the Bucs can fall. You know what I'm saying? Like if Baker's the ceiling, what is the floor? I'm not saying I think it's high. I just want to understand what that measurement is. Like I feel like the Bucs are about to return to NFL insignificance. Right? Like they had their moment in the sun for the last whatever it was, 3 years, and now like the Bucs are back to they Doug Martin had 100 million yards one time. Like that's the only thing that ever happened to the Bucs before Tom Brady joined them. You know what I mean? That's who they are.
The Bucs are on their Broncos arc post super. You know what I mean? It's like,
but the Broncos are like a Tiffany brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
they were pretty irrelevant for a while until they had Peyton. It felt like, and then
they had the Tebow year right before. What are you talking about?
Oh, come on.
And they had Jay Cutler's rookie year, and I mean, even then, Peyton Manning was 14 years after they won the Super Bowl. So I mean, that's harsh.
Yeah, I don't care about Kyle Trask. Really. I mean,
What do you care about on Friday night, Stephen?
I mean, I agree with BLG. Bijan is interesting. I don't know how much the Packers starters are going to play, but I'm curious to see Jordan Love just because he's a guy that we just haven't gotten a big sample size of. And everybody coming out of Packers camp is kind of like raving about this young offense. And Jordan Love looks great. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. And the Packers are a really young, interesting team. So I'm just curious to see what they look like post Aaron Rodgers and how all that's going to work. But again, I don't know how much they're planning on playing Jordan Love in preseason week 1.
Who do you guys think is the most likely team to finish last in the NFC North? Because I feel like people really disagree on this.
Most likely to finish last?
Yeah, in the NFC North. I mean, it's not like who?
I think it's the Packers or the Bears. Like I like what the Bears did this offseason, but I'm not in the. I love Justin Fields. I am not in the Justin Fields MVP race that's going on right now. I know that has set the bar way too high for Justin Fields and that Bears offense.
What's his name from Aaron Schatz, I believe, from Football Outsiders, had a really good tweet regarding Justin Fields last week. I think I sent that to RJ and Stats. The context here was like, he said it was fascinating to him, the hype he's getting in that regard, because historically there's been one quarterback since 1981 who was bad as Justin Fields for the first 2 years and then above average as a passer in his career in terms of, Football Outsiders DVOA metric. So yeah, the history is not strong with that kind of bet. You're really betting on the exception. But yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. Packers, it's tough to know what to make of them, because I think you have to give the coaching staff some level of credit, right? Don't you?
Why? I mean, so a few things. A few things.
They're going to go from this to like a total joke.
So a few things. One, I don't believe Aaron is affiliated with Football Outsiders anymore. I think that was a development over the offseason.
Yeah,
and
previously.
I think, right. Well, you didn't like the way you said it, like made it sound like it was current. So it was just, because he has the almanac that's available now that they're promoting, and we've obviously done work with them in the past. And DVOA is obviously highly valuable. So
right.
My first thing. My second thing was, I do understand the logic in placing a bet on Justin Fields for MVP, given his propensity to run, so I'm fine with that. But I think it's hilarious that the last thing you said right now, BLG, is like, oh, we're not going to give any credit to the coaching staff, because the last coaching staff that had Aaron Rodgers got no credit when they were no longer.
Yeah, but you love to give that guy credit, so then you have to give this coaching staff credit.
I'm fine
too,
doing
right?
that, but that's a level of hypocrisy that exists.
No,
in that.
Well,
we have to give Matt LaFleur the
benefit
of the doubt, even though he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers. When it was, oh well, Mike McCarthy was only successful because of Aaron Rodgers. That's dumb.
That was the bit I was getting at. You're not calling me out on something like I wasn't aware of.
That's okay. You're embarrassed. I don't my lack of belief in the Packers has nothing to do with the coaching staff. It's pure lack of belief in Jordan Love. And Christian Watson was resuscitated last year in the second half of the season by Aaron Rodgers. So we think Jordan Love can do that. I mean, I don't know.
Jordan Love had a nice touchdown pass to him against the Eagles last season.
I also feel like Christian Watson's talent deserves some recognition for his end of season run, because Rodgers wasn't very good last year. Christian Watson was just breaking off long touchdowns every single week.
Yeah, I guess. I like that question.
What do you mean
though.
He was?
No, I meant on the Packers in general. But color me skeptical. I'm just this is going to be an interesting season for the Packers, because when do they bottom out? Never. You know what I mean? They could truly because I don't know that we reached a consensus that they're the most likely team to finish last in the NFC North, but when has that ever been a consensus in any room ever in the world in the last 35 years?
Other than, the only bad seasons they've had really are Rodgers getting hurt, right?
But that wouldn't have been a discussion point at the beginning of those seasons.
Right, but I'm just saying, when's the last time they picked high in the draft? Because, this past year they were at 13. But looking back, you have to go pretty far back to find. They were 12 in 2019, but again, Rodgers injury. When's the last time they a top 10 pick? I'm looking all the way back here.
That wasn't traded for, because they had the Saints pick right that one year.
They had number 9 in 2009, but was that a trade or? Point being, it doesn't happen very often. And
2009 was after the first Rodgers year, and I don't think they made the playoffs in 2008. So that tracks.
I think they were kind of bad that year, right? Like Rodgers was really good, but the overall team was bad, and so they win a lot of games.
And then they started their run, and because that 2009 year was the that crazy Packers Cardinals playoff game, the Rodgers Kurt Warner duel or whatever. That was really funny. And then the next year they won the Super Bowl. So, wow.
Where did they win that Super Bowl?
What was your question?
Where did they win that Super Bowl?
It was called Cowboy Stadium at the time. It's called AT&T Stadium now. So I don't know what is that supposed to be like a dig?
No.
How many Super Bowls have been played at the Link? None, because it sucks. So I mean,
how many Super Bowls have the Eagles won recently?
Okay, and how about in like forever in the history of the earth? One. Oh, cool.
Okay.
Anyway, the Chiefs have won more Super Bowls than that in the past. What is it, Stephen? 5 years. One of them against the Eagles. So
that's true.
Anyway, I'm already annoyed at the Lions stuff. Like it's annoying me greatly. Like I this is the thing I'm most annoyed about is the Lions story. This
why
season.
They're excited. I'm excited about the Lions. They're gonna be fun.
I'm not denying that they're gonna be fun, but like I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to zig when everybody's zagging. Like it's just so annoying to me, like how like hyped up this is, and like people are so into the hype that they overlook things they would kill other teams for, like their draft. Like you know what I mean? Like if any other team had the like utilization of premier resources that they did, they would get dragged. People are like, oh well, it's okay. Like the Lions are on the same trajectory as the Bills were like 5 years ago. It's like, oh, like team we haven't cared about in a long time. Now we get to like see you more, so we're interested. And that shine is overpowering everything else. That's my take.
It's I get that, and I'm surprised that as many Lions fans are like opening themselves up for heartbreak this way, like because I'm actually good friends with someone who is from Michigan and grew up a Lions fan, and every year he's like, I'm never gonna do it. I'm never gonna allow myself to think they will ever be relevant ever. And he is this season. And it seems like all Lions fans are on board with it, even though like last season, I felt like they were that team that everybody talked about, like, oh, they're interesting and they're fun to watch, but they're not winning football games and they're not actually that good. They just can score points and they're fun. But this season, there's expectation. They went out and they tried to overhaul their secondary. They've got a lot of young players on the defense, so they expect that to be better. And the offense is projected to be like a top 5 offense in the NFL. And they spent a really high draft pick on Jahmyr Gibbs. So Jahmyr Gibbs better be a superstar player. Like, I'm all aboard. I am in on the Lions. I'm in on Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is going to have a good year. I'm really excited for this football team.
I think where I'm in agreement with RJ, and the thing I'm worried about with the Lions and specifically the fan base kind of energy is just the notion that I think there's too much of like progress is linear, definitely approach that I feel like I'm getting from Lions fans. Like, so we did this next year and then we're going to take the next step next year. That's possible. That scenario exists, but it doesn't always work out like that. I think too many people are just like, well, they're just definitely going to get better. I don't know. Like, that's not always how things go in the NFL. Sometimes you think a team's going to take, everyone at this point thinks their team's going to take a step forward. And I think sometimes you're hit with a hard dose of reality. Jared Goff is in a weird spot, almost like where Jimmy G was with the 49ers, where it's like, he's not the 10th, he's not a top 10 quarterback or whatever, but the 49ers are always going to have like a top 10 or top 5, whatever kind of offense with him at the helm. I think Jared Goff is in that kind of position right now. But at the same time, it's like, are they like, what is their ceiling with Jared Goff? Like, how far can they really go? That offense can be good, but like, you're talking about the playoffs and when these games really matter. And Goff was good in that Packers game at the end of the season that, helped keep Green Bay out of the playoffs. But like, I don't know, man. It's just, what is the ceiling with Jared Goff? When he went, okay, yes, the Rams went to a Super Bowl with him. He was bad in those playoffs. Do you remember his numbers from that playoff run? Like, they were not good. He was not driving that. He had an okay title game, the Saints pass interference game. He had one touchdown in that entire playoff run. One touchdown pass, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 71.7. Like,
they beat the Cowboys, the Saints, and then lost, right? Is that correct?
in the Super Bowl.
Well, it looked like you had it in front of you. That's what I'm saying.
What do you mean? You're saying for that entire run?
Yeah, that Rams run in 2018 in the playoffs.
Yeah, they lost to the Patriots.
I'm sorry. They beat the Cowboys and the Saints, right, on the way there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
and then they literally put up the lowest scoring output in Super Bowl history ever.
It's the worst Super Bowl of all time. It's the worst Super Bowl I've ever watched.
So like again, like they're cute and they're fun. I'm with you on the golfed out, and they're like, but again, like I feel like all of the evaluation and analysis of them is like with the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, like that's kind of my biggest gripe here. Like they have this like fun energy that people want to, like, I bring up the Bills. Like, remember when like the Andy Dalton beat the Ravens thing and the Bills sneak, like that whole energy, like that Bills locker room celebration, that's what people are with the Lions. And they think like now everyone thinks it's cool and hip and vogue to like jump onto the Lions bandwagon. I'm not saying they'll suck. We all agree, right? Like the consensus here is that the three best teams in the NFC are the, whatever order you want to put them in, Eagles, Niners, Cowboys, right? Like that's very obviously something we agree on strongly. Who is the fourth team in your mind? Like who's the fourth best team in the NFC after that?
I like Seattle. I think Seattle's going to make. I do think they're going to make a leap.
Is your answer the Lions or somebody else, Stephen?
I think it's Seattle too. I just think Seattle has more talent, like top to bottom. But I think the Lions are going to be in the playoff mix. Like I think they're right there. And like I just mentioned, like I'm not in on. I like what the Bears did. I think the Bears are going to be better, but their defense still isn't going to be good. Like their offense should be better this season, but I'm not all of a sudden thinking that the Bears are going to take this massive jump and be like a top 3 seed in the playoffs or anything. I would rather take the Lions to win that division over Chicago.
So if we go off of odds, our friends at DraftKings, so they have, like, if you kind of look at it this way, like odds to win the NFC in order, it's Eagles, Niners, Cowboys. So again, kind of consensus, the 3 best teams. The team with the 4th highest odds to win the NFC are the Detroit Lions. The Seahawks aren't even 5th. The Saints are. So that's interesting. I know you loved last year, Brandon, when Peter King picked the Saints to win the NFC.
Come on. I mean, like, look, Peter King, I think gets a lot right, and obviously, but like that was just insane. That's insane. It's an insane prediction.
It really was. But so again, like that is a huge. That's a generous like belief in the Lions.
It's and like the Saints, it's just because of their division is such garbage. Like they're probably talent-wise the best team in that division because you don't really know what you're getting in all of the other teams. But I have faith in the Lions. Like I have more faith in the Lions than the Vikings this season. I would argue that.
So odds to win the NFC North, and we're obviously having this conversation on Friday, August the 11th. The Lions plus 140, the Vikings plus 275. I understand. I'm not here to have this fight again. The 1 possession victories, the point differential last year, all this stuff.
Like the roster getting worse. Like they're just getting rid of.
I don't feel as passionately about that as most people. Like they
got rid of like their best pass rushers, right?
They traded Zadarius Smith. They kept Danielle Hunter, and then they cut Dalvin Cook, who's the Jets can't lock down, right? Like so those are the headlines. But so my point is like that's
Eric Kendricks also gone, right?
Sure. Okay, cool. Like none of these are like, cataclysmic sort of things to me. But so like that disparity is either disrespectful to the Vikings or way too optimistic about the Lions. Like the Lions are not that much better than the Vikings. That's my stance.
I think they are. It's the Vikings are like Kirk Cousins somehow at this point in his career is underrated, I think, just for how good he actually has been for the last few years. Like he's a consistent 30 touchdown a year thrower, like solid NFL quarterback, still struggles in big moments and does all that stuff, but wins football games. And Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in football. I like Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson's a nice player. I don't trust Alexander Madison at all. Like I don't understand how the Vikings got better in any way. And they're a team that was already set up for regression because of all of those 1-score wins, which is something you're just not going to repeat year over year in the NFL.
Does anybody know how many times Jared Goff has eclipsed 30 touchdowns in a single season? Not that this is
maybe.
Your guess is once. What's your guess, Brandon?
Twice.
It's once. It was that 2018 season. He had 32. So, I mean, that also had the thrilling 1 million to 998,000 score game between them and the Chiefs.
Can you name a player on the Vikings defense that is not Harrison Smith or Danielle Hunter?
Wait, not Harrison Smith or
Yeah.
Danielle Hunter?
So
Well, they
not
have Byron Murphy Jr.
Okay.
Lewis Cine.
Lewis Dean is not even like, I'm looking at their depth chart here on our lads, and I've heard about this too, coming out of like training camp, like Lewis Dean and Andrew Booth, who were like the Vikings top 2 picks from last year. They're not even like getting the first team reps. Like it's not looking good for them.
That was another one, like we talked about on the mixtape this week about Nakobe Dean. When Lewis Dean fell, everybody was like, "Oh man, how'd he fall?" And it's like, well, maybe this was why. You know what I mean, like, so to speak. But there's regression coming from them in a positive sense on defense, and Brian Flores has to help. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, we're willing to give all the like optimistic, spins to the Lions on all these things, but none to the Vikings. Like we only give the Vikings the negative ones. So.
Well, I will say Jalen Reagor did have 4 catches for 55 yards last night, baby. So, it's the breakout's coming. He can elevate the 5th round pick that the Vikings owe to the Eagles to a 4th round pick if he hits a certain benchmark. So, or maybe it's a 6th to a 5th. I forget. Either way, Jalen Reagor breakout definitely happening.
The Lions thing, I know we don't have a ton of time left, but the Lions thing was my like thing that I am most annoyed about or believe in the least that the like the national consensus does. Do either of you have something that like people are saying that you're like, that's dumb and stupid and I hate it?
I mean, I've already gone over the Fields thing in the past. I don't need to.
Okay, so the Fields thing is your thing. Maybe Steven, yours is that Chris Jones is going to play for the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, we should talk about.
Even though Chris Jones kind of agrees with that.
We can talk about that, and I obviously have a lot of thoughts on that. But to go to RJ's question, for me, it's really the Giants and this all of a sudden belief in Daniel Jones. Like, I understand this is the best team he's probably had around him, and he seems like he's got a good coaching staff in place now. But I think it's getting out of control with Daniel Jones. Like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, they finally got a pass rush and a defense, and their offensive line's good, and they got weapons around Daniel Jones. They've got 75 slot wide receivers on that roster, and all of a sudden, we're just going to assume that Daniel Jones and his decision-making is better than it's ever been in his career. And he's not, and I understand he didn't turn the ball over as much last season because Brian Daboll was putting him in better situations. But like, I have no faith in Daniel Jones winning 12 games or something like that for the Giants this season. Just absolutely no faith in that.
I got to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of optimism. I mean, like, I don't know that I'm not saying it's a straw man argument, but like, I haven't seen that. If that exists, great. Like, I'm happy that it's out there in the ether.
I think it exists, coming off the contract. I've seen, and take it for what it's worth. It's from Big Blue View, so I'm sure. I don't know. Not that I'm saying Ed can't be unbiased, but I'm sure there's a favorable slant to looking at how the quarterback is playing in the team's training camp that you cover. I think, the Vikings and Giants are in a similar boat, kind of, in terms of, this 1-score game stuff, regression, whatnot. And you might also be able to say they're in a similar boat to the Lions. And what I just said, that there's just an assumption that like, okay, year 2 of Ryan Daboll, so it's definitely going to be better of year 1. Again, it doesn't necessarily work like that. That's not how progress always goes. There's still some questions, as we talk about in the NFC's mixtape, with the Giants offensive line and Evan Neal, who's been missing time in training camp with a concussion, and he was really bad in year 1. I think he can make a year 2 leap, but it's like there's a big leap of faith to believe in that. So yeah, and also look, like I was looking at the 53-man projection that Ed Valentine has up in Big Blue View, and when we talk about these Giants wide receivers, like it's just so bleh. Like there's so many, just like these are the names that Ed has keeping. Isaiah Hodgins, who I like, but like if that's your top guy, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson's currently on the PUP list. We'll see what happens with him. Sterling Shepard, who's been hurt a billion times, and Cole Beasley. Like, is that striking fear into the hearts of anyone? I think Jalen Hyatt could be really potentially a difference maker, but everyone else, like, what is that? What are you working with there?
They kind of took the similar offseason approach to the Chiefs, where it's like, just get as many bodies in this wide receiver room as possible. But the Chiefs at least have like variations and body type and play style in their wide receiver room. And the Giants were just like slot wide receivers. That's all we want. Like,
not to mention a quarterback who can elevate them, like demonstrably so.
On the subject of the Chiefs, because we don't have a ton of time left. Stephen, tell us how you single-handedly threw a grenade into Chiefs Kingdom on Friday morning.
It wasn't my intention. I was just kind of going through the normal Friday morning routine where we have a podcast on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network called Show and BK. We record it on Thursday nights, release it Friday morning. I released a clip of us talking about Chris Jones where Brandon Kiley, one of the hosts, says at the start of the clip, there is a 0% chance that Chris Jones, Chiefs superstar pass rusher, misses any games this season. And if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on with the Chiefs, Chris Jones is holding out in training camp right now. He is, as of today, up to $850,000 in fines from refusing to show up to training camp. He's headed into the last year of his deal. He wants to get paid like Aaron Donald. He wants to get paid like, and he deserves to get paid. I want to make that clear. But so we put that video clip out. Chris Jones responds to it, and we're saying there's no chance he's going to miss games. And Chris Jones' response was, "You're just hoping I don't," on Twitter. And so now it's turned into this conversation on Friday morning where we're waiting to see if he reports, and now Chris Jones is like hinting on Twitter that he might hold out games in the regular season, which I still think he's just messing with people. Like, I think that's what Twitter is for, especially when you're a famous athlete. Like, just screw with people. That's great. I like that stuff. I don't think that we should actually take anything from his response to our tweet this morning.
I mean, he has to maintain that position. You know what I mean? Like, even if he doesn't fully mean it, he has to like maintain that stance. I'm looking here, by the way, most sacks since 2020 out of, this doesn't seem right to me because Hassan Reich's not listed here. It's on StatMuse. I put for defensive tackles. Well, I mean, the search must be broken because
StatMuse is wrong sometimes too.
Yeah, Myles Garrett is showing up. He's not a defensive tackle. Same thing with Trey Henderson. Anyway, 32 sacks we're talking about since 2020 for Chris Jones. And prior to the show, I had asked Stephen here, I was like, where does Chris Jones rank annually in terms of interior defensive line contracts? And he's 9th. That's crazy. It's kind of crazy that he ranks in that. And, look, Aaron Donald's way ahead of the market here at $31.7 million. The next closest player is the Quentin Williams contract coming in at 24. But it feels like, Chris Jones has a fair gripe when he's at 20 and there are 8 players ahead of him. So it certainly seems like the Chiefs need to do something. But in terms of the ultimate leverage, I think the Chiefs have that. Like, Chris Jones is not going to not show up this year and just leave $20 million on the table.
Yeah, you mentioned it really well in the clip that started it all, Stephen. But I get it. Like, Chris Jones's job right now is to like stir the pot, and y'all do a great job at Arrowhead Pride, and so like it makes sense. But this is like this was predictable when it all started. It's I don't mean to make this about the Cowboys, but it's like with Zach Martin who's holding. Well, it's like Zach Martin's holding out, right? And so like when the fines reached $50,000 or $500,000, because like Chris Jones is getting fined $50,000, a day. Like that day, there were all these sort of like the Cowboys have fined Zach Martin $500,000. It's like, well, yeah, because it's 50 a day and it's been 10 days. Like, this is just the way it like, welcome to math. You know what I mean? Like, and so like, it's just like a way to generate more attention about it. And Chris Jones is taking matters into his own hands here. Where does he rank for you? Like on the hierarchy of like players' importance level to the Chiefs? Like Mahomes is 1, who's 2? Where does Chris Jones rank?
He's number 3, and he's far and away the most important defensive player that they have. Like, it's not even close.
Mahomes, Kelsey, Jones.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he's that important. And like, why? I don't think he's going to miss games this season. He's under contract through the 2023 season, so I think he is going to play. Mm-hmm. I think they should extend him. It's just it comes down to the price tag, and he wants to get paid more than the Chiefs are willing to offer him. And I think the Chiefs have made an initial offer, which I'm going to assume was probably like 26, 27 with, maybe they could get out after a year or two, and he's looking for either more years or a higher guarantee, and he wants to get closer to $30 million a season. Now, we'll see if that happens. I think they should do it, but the Chiefs have gone away from that in the last couple of years, and they've really tried to make the roster younger around Patrick Mahomes, and they've done a good job of it, at least in the last 2 draft classes. So maybe they do move on from him, but there's also kind of always been this like weird underlying relationship with Chris Jones and the Chiefs. Like his last contract negotiation was bad, and he was like openly upset about it. On social media and everything, kind of like he's doing now. But I think it was worse last time because he was a second round pick, really not making any money, and they were getting a huge return on him at the time. And then like the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls, and both times at Super Bowl parades, they didn't let Chris Jones talk. Like it was the first time was ahead
of world problem.
Like the first time it was ahead of his contract negotiation offseason. So I kind of understood that. And then the last time, which I guess again headed into another contract situation, they tried not to let him talk again. And this time Mahomes stepped in and took the mic and was like, let him talk. And so he wound up talking for a few minutes, but it seemed like all the Chiefs personnel on the stage were annoyed and upset that Mahomes did that. Like they've got a weird relationship organizationally with Chris Jones, I think.
I found out those sack numbers, by the way. At least just total sacks since 2020. Chris Jones is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. And then that's 1 ahead of Aaron Donald. He's 1 more sack since 2020. So, I mean, again, kind of a fair case here to be made that he deserves more.
I think he'll show up. Just my last take on this. And because he's not dumb. And I think Chris Jones knows if the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, I think we all think that's really likely, that Chris Jones is like a borderline Hall of Famer right now. You know what I mean? And if you're part of that group, like, because the group at that point is of the 3, you know, if it were to be 3, would be him, Mahomes, and Kelsey, right? Beside, like, as far as players, like, that's a powerful thing on your career resume. And there's a lot of like future generational wealth that is associated with something like that. And so, I mean, I think he'd be foolish to walk away, but I mean, it makes sense that he's trying to make a point here. So, we have to leave the inaugural episode of TGI Football. So as we do, Stephen, you're going to tell us your favorite song by Fall Out Boy and why it's your favorite.
I don't know any songs by.
That's impossible. That's
Sugar We're Going Down Swinging is the only one I can pull off the top of my head. I don't know any other Fall Out Boy.
It's just called Sugar We're Going Down.
Okay, whatever.
Wow, Brandon, what's yours?
Thanks for the murmurs.
Mine is Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner. Because I really like it, but I had never seen Dirty Dancing when I first heard that song, and like I saw the movie like maybe like 6 or 7 years later, and when he said it, I was like, "That's the song." I was like, they stole that from Fall Out Boy." So, yeah, I think that's a good note to end on.